Those against in there, the eyes have it.
Our journey has been steady from the advent. With crystal clear vision, we started off as a news online portal. We subsequently evolved into a magazine, and now on your radio. We do not only bear the name Media House. We practice with the best ethos of our professional calling, presenting facts with objectivity. We are committed and resolute. We are HallowMace. We are the standard bearers. It's HallowMace on radio, dedicated to promotion of legislature, democracy, and good governance. It's hot, interactive, educating, engaging, and entertaining. HallowMace on radio, Thursdays, 10 a.m. on Armed Forces Radio, 107.7 FM. HallowMace on radio. Parliament. Watch to the people. Watch to the people.
107.7 FM. We're already live with you. It's just that we intend to actually have you part of our conversation today on HallowMace. Honorable Rima, it's the one that I can call without mincing words.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you. I was told you've been here before.
Yes, I've been here once or two times or so.
Okay.
Yeah. Then I was still a member of the House of Representatives.
Okay, and we have a conversation. It's just that I'm engaging him already. When I checked between 1999 and 2003, you were in the House, and at the point you were a chairman, House Committee on Army. I know that the concept of security has been one conversation that has been long, and we've been on with it. I wouldn't know, from your experience and some of the submissions you might want to make now from outside the Honorable House, what can you say about the security in Nigeria, considering what the Army has been faced with recently?
Well, I don't know whether the Army has faced anything really new.
The way Nigerians have been confronting them, some of the harassment that are mated on military personnel, specifically some of our soldiers, most recent, the one in Banex Plaza, and some other development here and there. It has a point, looks as though the way the Army is seen now, Nigerians are not giving regards as they should give.
No, there are two sides to the story.
Okay.
And the first part of the story is that it is given in most countries in the world that if you wear uniform, you have certain levels of respect.
Very true.
And that certain level of respect brings in the second factor, that you have to act in accordance with the ethics of the uniform that you are wearing. Some of the things that have taken place is not that people hate the people that are wearing uniform or that they don't like the army or the military, the police or so forth. There have been proven cases of people stepping outside the role that you play.
Okay.
And once you do that, you invite certain problems. I think that, I don't know whether it was in this program or another program.
Oh, yeah?
I had advocated, even when I was chairman of the House Committee on Army, that even though the military has had to pull out men that are performing duties on the streets, duties which should be performed by the police, civil defense or other paramilitary forces. But we should make efforts to withdraw the military as much as possible from direct contact with the other paramilitary forces, because over the years we've witnessed a problem that before you will never hear of a military man on the street collecting money from drivers or from anybody, but those standards are dropping. And the dropping of those standards is not good for the military, it's not good for the country. And I think that even though it has become necessary to have military on the streets, I do advocate that military should not be part of task forces operating with the paramilitary agencies, because increasingly military people on the street, military men on the street, are imbibing the unethical behaviors and attitudes of the other agencies, bringing disrepute to the military and making people to take the military for granted. In those days, quite as early as 2011, people will say they prefer to have soldiers in a place. Whenever they saw soldiers coming, people will run away. But now that is changing. People are no longer getting afraid of the military, and it's not good.
Absolutely. I think that we will do more conversation should we have some time. At the moment, our interest is on the Nigerian economy. Our last week edition, HallowMace on radio, here on Armed Forces Radio, had with us some analysts and also a distinguished senator that came live to talk to the issue of the Nigerian economy. Now, cousin, if you're joining us for the first time, HallowMace on radio comes at you here every Thursday at 10 a.m. We interact with you. It's a non-partisan program with the interest of having good governance, considering legislators coming through to talk with you directly. In today's edition, we have with us Honorable Rima Shawulu. At one point, he was a member of House of Representatives representing Taraba now. I'm just giving a paraphrase of the conversation. So we are intending to have more time with him on this edition of the program as we look at the challenges Nigerian economy is faced with. So you could come through in the course of the program to ask your questions, make your contributions on the number 0814-312-1181. Honorable Member, I should speak from a perspective of how the Nigerian people have complained on hunger is in the land. Now, when you talk about the economy, it's for me a big word to go with. What we understand better is if I go to the market and I'm buying gari for 1,000 naira, it's not the same as buying it for 200. Now, I wouldn't know. What can you say generally about the performance of the Nigerian economy?
When you talk about the economy, it's actually a big word that confuses people, people like me. What we are talking about is really whether people can have enough food to eat, one. Number two, whether they will be able to send their children to school, and if they are sick, whether they will have access to hospitals and be able to buy the medicines that they need. So those are the basic things that you are talking when you are talking about the economy. And indeed, it's a very serious problem because over the last, especially in the last 8 years, farmers have been on. That is the basic thing. I start from that perspective because majority of people in Nigeria are employed in the agricultural sector. They are largely peasant farmers, either raising a few livestock or having farms, and for which they used to feed themselves and their families, and they use the excess to sell in the market to pay pay hospital bills, to send their children to school. Now, what has happened, and that is a major thing that we are not looking at, is that if you look at current statistics, I just read somewhere yesterday and I was astonished that Niger Republic actually produces quite substantial, maybe more beans than Nigeria. It's an arid region. If people are talking about scarcity of tomatoes today, and the tomatoes that you are talking about and the onions that you are talking about, much of it previously was being farmed in parts of the north.
Very true.
Many of the areas, people have been driven away. They can no longer live there. People are complaining that yams today, if you go to market, people are no longer able to buy yams. They have to slice them into pieces to buy. Why not? One of the biggest baskets of yams in the country is the Benue Troy. That is Benue State and parts of Taraba State. Most of those areas have been overrun by bandits masquerading in the name of headers or so. If you go to Kaduna State, a very significant percentage of the maize that is farmed in Nigeria comes from southern Kaduna, parts of Kaduna, places like Saminaka and Co. Now, people can no longer farm in those places. If you go to Plateau State, much of the potatoes that you eat in the country, Irish potato,
very true,
come from
that place.
Bokos, Mango in Plateau State.
Very true.
The people can no longer farm. Even on the plateau, top of the plateau, places like Bassa local government, places like Jos North Riyom, we used to have large quantity of vegetables that were sent to all parts of the country. In fact, at a point, when ShopRite started in Nigeria, I understand that it was buying 10 million naira worth of Irish potato from Jos. Now the people have been displaced. They are living in camps. So where will you not expect hunger in the land? If you even check the statistics of hunger, it is said that 87% of the hunger problem in Nigeria is in northern Nigeria. That is where the problem is. And this problem of insecurity has gone down to the south. It's gone down to, including the so-called headers problem. It's gone down to even places like Delta State. You have that challenge there. You have that challenge in Edo State. And if you go to Kogi State, understand the whole local government today, people are being displaced. Now, why will you not expect hunger in the land? That is at one level. Now, the second level, which is also related, is that it's not about the problems that we have. People live on hope, generally. And if we give people hope, they can innovate what they can use to live their lives. But it does not appear that there's a program, there's a plan that can take us out of the woods. Increasing, and if you notice, around Abuja and most urban centers, there's massive migration from the rural areas. Slums, even in Abuja, are developing all over the outskirts of Abuja. People are running from the rural areas to come into cities. Now, those places where people are coming into will become hotbeds of crime and criminality.
Challenge.
Further increasing the problems of the economy. And then if you go to the issue that is very popular among us, the oil. I listened to someone, a white man, an analyst who was speaking from the US, and the analysis is that until we begin to produce and sell up to 5 million barrels per day, we're not likely going to get out of the economic situation that we have. Mind you, part of the problems that we have is that we have forward sold the oil and used up the money. So if you have further dip in the production, it means that you are going to further increase the loan, the money that we collected for oil that we might be unable to supply.
Honorable, look at what I'm looking at. With what you have elaborated, one would feel that the problems of the Nigerian economy are so enormous. But what I'm thinking is, do you think we can surmount these problems, address it, and find lasting solutions so that we're able to have the Nigerian people breathe correctly? Where would the Honorable is laughing. I wonder, you feel it's not surmountable, some of these problems?
No, I actually believe that the challenge of Nigeria is the leadership.
Okay.
And the leadership problem is flowed down right to the lowest category of persons in the country. What do I mean? First, there's dishonesty at every level. We're not. If you listened to the debate in the Senate about the ranching, so-called ranching, and so forth, see that there were a lot of insincerity. What do I mean by a lot of insincerity? According to President Muhammadu Buhari, only 2% of the arable land, cultivatable land in northern Nigeria has been cultivated. That means that we have over 97% of the arable good land that needs to be cultivated that should be cultivated. So where are we having farmers herders clash if there's so much land? Number two, if you look at related to this point, the insincerity, if you look at the statistics of Nigeria's ratio of cattle, Nigeria is one of the lowest producers of cattle and cattle-related products in the world. In fact, so low that in terms of per capita ratio, Ghana has more cattle than Nigeria. And many of them are surrendering. Why is it that we have so much land, so few cattle, we are fighting over grazing?
Now, my challenge is, how do we address this insincerity? Because as far as I'm concerned, until it is addressed, the Nigerian man is still thinking of leaving this place for a better environment. And for me, it's a challenge.
It's not. It's even much more than that. The issue is that if you also watch debates at the National Assembly, the debates follow. Someone will stand up and introduce himself. He will call the name of his ethnic group. For instance, Rima Shawulu Kwewum, a Kutev man from Taraba State.
For you, it's not necessary.
No. Psychology of that is that the loyalty is to the ethnic group.
Look at that. Not to the Nigerian.
Not to the Nigerian state. If you look at even the debate, which I talked about the insincerity, the people who are talking about allowing cattle to graze are not even looking at the fact that the cattle that are grazing are not, the complaint is not that they are grazing on grass. The complaint is that they are going to cut down crops. Like if you saw pictures from Plateau State, pictures from Taraba State, pictures from all over the country, these cattle go into farmlands to destroy farmlands.
Very challenging.
They leave the grass to destroy farmlands. And then someone will say, so the issue is the insincerity. Now, come to think of it, if you look at the history of cattle across the country, across the world, there is no community, there is no tribe that did not have cattle. From the all tribes had people who were rearing cattle, people who are farming, including the Fulani. The Fulani have farmers who are farming, other crops. They have people who are that rearing cattle is not. It does not belong to one group alone. Even in the United Kingdom, they had that problem. They had cattle going to London, destroying the streets of London, dating every place. They had to make legislation. There was a legislation someone was telling me about called the Enclosures Act. Okay. And what did it do? Part of it was to stop people from allowing free range of cattle, of animals, because free range of animals were dating the city, they were creating environmental problems, as well as destroying other people's products. I understand that one of the regulations at that time was that if a cattle strayed into somebody's enclosure, it became that person's property. And we had rules, and we have rules that do exist that we are not following. I remember a meeting we had with the former President Muhammadu Buhari at the government house in Jalingo, when there was a problem between cattle, so-called cattle rearers, and the late Akuka of Ukari stood up there and told the president, we have a regulation, and me, I'm old enough, at 63, I remember that time. Before cattle move from one location to another, they needed the permission of the authorities where they were moving into. And they normally had to take count. How many people are coming? How many cattle are coming with you? So that you don't come back tomorrow and say your cattle were stolen. Even in nearby Cameroon, that still does apply. So, question today, people will say that 200 cows were roasted or taken from a location. How many cows went there in the first place? There is no statistics, nobody knows. And then it could well be people who are trying to foment trouble that are trying to do this. So if we just go back to obey our regulation, leave out our insincerity, allow people to do their farming, allow people to do what they needed to do. And if any person wants to, which is why one of the reasons why I don't actually support this so-called ranching thing that people are talking about. Okay. Because if you are talking about ranching, the government is going to invest. Government has to equally invest money on other forms of agriculture. The reason is that the Fulani man or the Birom man, there was a time Birom people were some of the biggest cattle owners on the Jos Plateau. If they buy a land 100 by 100, keep their cattle there. The land becomes their own. Nobody will go there. They can grow the grass there and keep the cattle there.
Now, Honorable Rima, I'm looking at more solutions as we interact with you on this edition of HallowMace. But let me see if I can get you engaged in this conversation. Cousin, you could reach us on 0814-312-1181. The numbers again, 0814-312-1181. We're looking at how we can advance the cost of living in Nigeria, where we should be able to have the Nigerian citizen enjoy their lives, because we are looking at the concept of hunger in the land. While the Honorable was talking, you spoke on hope, and I'm thinking of the concept of the non-partisan expression we've always come through with. This administration is talking on renewed hope. Let me see if I can talk with the first caller. Good morning, cousin.
Hello, sir.
Thank you for joining us. Your name and where you're calling from, please.
Yeah, I'm calling from Kuje Area Council. My name is Moses.
Moses, thank you for joining us. 60 seconds, please.
Yeah, sir. You people have spoken well. The conversation you people are making is very fine. It's very nice.
Okay.
So, what I will take into the matter little is issue of farming and issue of grazing. You understand, pa?
Yes, sir.
Honestly speaking, we are before a giant of Africa. Let's say they are realistic. But what happened now that the giant of Africa has become a kid of Africa? You are comparing with Niger and all the Ghana. Shame was catching me because typically Nigerian has a lot of land, a lot of plots, a lot of land that can graze, that can farm. But we come today that we cannot even fit well just because of the land, the bush there are not for the farmer again. Understand me?
I do, Moses.
So what I may call you to is, if you can look at it very critically. Now, last year, I can give an example of myself. I found a lot of beans. Sir, I went there to go and harvest. It's only on my palm, like my palm hand, that I take my beans. My palm, my hand like
Look
this.
At that.
The cows have wet everything down.
I heard this.
So what I want us to understand is that the cow, people that are grazing in the bush there, they are also farming. They cannot take their cow onto their farm. And secondly, now, when you reported the matter to either security agency, you find that one family was telling me that if I say I will put chemical in my farm so that their cow will come and eat and die, how much is my farm that they cannot sell one cow and buy and even buy me?
I heard this. Moses, it's a challenge. Thank you so much. You have made your point. Let me see. Anderson, help me. This phone is trying to do something. I heard it. I knew when it was coming through on that canality. Cousin, forgive us. Let's see if we can have... Okay. Now, we'll have more reactions and then we talk some more. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Your name and where you're calling from, please.
I'm Engineer Suleiman. I'm calling from Kurudu.
Suleiman, talk to us. You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I'm really appreciated. The officer have made all our this country problems in terms of security. And without that security, there's no any environmental that can secure. We have people in the office collect 50 million, 20 million, 50 million, 60 million. And others, they are die for hunger. They can't be able to farm. So that's the situation we are facing in our country today. Where they are employing every month. Between army forces, the top of parliamentary, like police, they are employed every where then.
Okay. Suleiman.
Like officers spoke last time that when they deploy them to the street to do the job, people have to run with that, they're running for them. But for now, even though they deploy soldiers to go and work, nobody can run for them again. Because the reality is not fucked up from the elder.
Thank you, Suleiman. We appreciate you. We're trying to see if we can allow more callers to also make their input on this. I appreciate. Let me get back to the Honorable. Calls are still coming in. Now, at this point, I feel that we have been a talking nation to a point. What I'm looking at should be actions. For us, if we are able to have quite a number of people who have moved into the city centers to have their confidence, let them get back to their villages and get on the farmland and see how we can diversify, because it has always been the oil. So if we're magnifying conversations around agriculture, let's see what you can say to help the Nigerian citizen believe that the security can still help us survive.
Well, that is a very difficult question, but a very difficult thing to say. But I like breaking things down to what I can understand. The first things that we need to do is the first level of security. Like I talked about, cattle moving from one location to another. That is the responsibility of the local governments. Okay. And which is why I actually love and what President Tinubu is doing about the local governments, and I pray that the Supreme Court agrees with my own interpretation of the Constitution, that the local governments, as presently enshrined in the Constitution, should be self-sustaining entities, a tier of government as guaranteed by the Constitution. The reason is that for any security to work, the local governments must work. Okay. That is where you have the basic meetings. That is why the chiefs and the local government officials and the councillors need to know whoever comes into the local government. But presently, in most of the states, local governments are just a department of the governor's offices. And
the word department.
Because of that, the local governments only pay salary. In fact, in most of the states, the salaries are paid by a so-called bureau for local governments. So the security meetings are not being held. The chiefs are not the chiefs, and the village heads who should be the first responders to the presence of strangers and don't have the resources.
Look at that.
And let me tell you something that you don't know, that you may not know. In almost all local governments, the number of policemen that are present is so low. In some places, you don't have up to 50 policemen in the local government. And so how do you, and that is where the basic problem is. I have advocated that a country like Nigeria should have at least 2 million policemen. Let's do small maths. If there are 100 or 200 policemen in each of the 774 local government areas, they can cover as many wards as possible. They will be able to respond to something is happening here. They can go. But now we don't have. Our local governments are becoming like ungoverned spaces.
Very challenging. Would you advocate for the state policing at the point that conversation has been on?
No, I don't. I think state policing is, for now, is absolute rubbish. Okay. Let me say, so that we don't forget. Okay. Let me say that. Okay. It's absolute rubbish for me. Because state governments are unable to pay salary. They are saying they can't pay more than 30,000 naira salary. How can they now take, for a state, the smallest state, say Bayelsa State, we need at least 200 to 300 or 500 policemen in every local government. Multiply that by the 13 that they have. You are talking about maybe 4,000 to 5,000 policemen. Bayelsa has less than 3,000 workers, I think. I'm guessing, I don't know. Now you add another 5,000 or 6,000 because if you just employ 20 policemen, state police in a local government area, you are just employed political talks. You need to have 500 in every local government, and the states don't have capacity to pay. They say, the governors say that themselves.
I think that if we will have more conversations around that, some people will still would want to talk to, but we heard your position clear enough. Good morning, cousin.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, I'm Prince Zobu. I'm calling from Airport Road, Abuja here.
Prince Zobu?
Yeah.
Okay, go on, please. 60 seconds.
I think I appreciate your guest.
Appreciate it too.
I just want to support some viewpoints. So this kind of people who can solve problems in this country, if they're listening to them. Again, I want to appreciate you for hosting this program, talking boldly on, I think, this Armed Forces Radio.
Thank you so much, cousin.
Let me tell you, see, the problem we're having is, it's not about community policing and all this stuff. The police are understaffed, and the government, they should be centralized the government. We have 6 zones in this country. There's nothing wrong if we have this was red, watching the 6 zones, even in sports. You can do sport within the 6 zones and meet at the center. I don't know what people are afraid of. Then you talk of people like in Lube here, somebody has a farm, they call him that something is happening on his farm. Before he went there, they kidnapped him. Before he came back, they cleared the farm. They have to sell some of his properties to release him.
Quite sad.
And this one is happening. Can that man go back to the farm again?
Quite sad. He might not.
Traumatic. These are traumatic and psychological effects that is affecting these farmers because people think they don't go to school. Because this is a health issue.
Prince Sabo, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll just be taking a bit of the calls so that we're able to balance it. As many who will want to come on the numbers 0814-312-1181. Now, I'm looking at it. Someone has heard us talked about Nigeria as the giant of Africa. And at this point, we're looking at our challenge in respect to providing for the Nigerian state. Government, actually, it's about the security of the people and the well-being of the people. I'm live on my Facebook page, cousin. Should you want to watch the live broadcast, you come Genesis John, your cousin on radio, and follow us up, or HallowMace on radio. You could go on our Facebook, Instagram, the YouTube, and you are also privileged to watch the live broadcast as we host Honorable Rima. Now, I'm talking about the function majorly for the government is securing lives and making sure that your citizens are well fed. That's the paraphrasing I'm making now. If, with what you're saying, you would want to talk about Nigeria at 25 with our democracy, and we're still crawling like this, these are issues that have lived with us for only God knows how long, and our democracy has survived. What are we not doing right to be able to address these issues?
What we're not doing right is, like I said from the beginning, leadership. We've had people that are visionless, greedy, who take money from the country, drop them the money in European banks, and they don't have access to much of the money and the properties they leave in European banks again. Because once they die, the money is lost. That is one. Number two, because of lack of vision. You see, we started about the same time with countries like a little bit later than countries like India and some of the countries that we started with. They are far ahead of us. Look at Brazil, for instance. You know, we're celebrating buying some jets that are going to help us fight Boko Haram, which President Muhammadu Buhari took 1 billion naira from the excess crude account to buy. Do you know that those jets, Embraer jets from Brazil, do you know we are talking about buying tractors from India? Do you know that even China, that is the top workshop of the world today, about 40 years ago was one of the poorest countries in the world? But because certain things took place in China, we had visionary leaders. Secondly, we had morality. They had something they believed in. They believed in China. They believed in being one another's keeper. The way they handle them, their rule, you may not like it. But a situation does exist in China where if you steal government property, you will be executed.
Now, Honorable, I'm looking at the concept of you speaking on the visions that most of our leaders don't have. One of the spiritual words will say, write the vision, make it plain, though it tarries, wait for it. You would want to look at it, and would you feel that that's so sweet enough to make a bold statement by saying no vision?
Actually, ask a child today in Nigeria, ask a school child today in Nigeria, ask him the vision for the country, whether he will have anything. That is a problem. And that lack of vision and the inordinate ambition to get wealth has permeated down to the lowest level. The former ASU president, Dr. Sule Kano, told me once, he said he almost cried. He finished lecturing some students, and he was leaving the campus, so he was walking. He was behind some of his students And the students were saying that they were waiting for opportunity to get into government so that they will steal and buy cars and do this and do this. Why is it that way? Because we have given the impression that every person, anyone that has money and wealth in this country has stolen the money or done something wrong. So people, including the young people coming behind us, believe that you have to cheat someone, you have to do something wrong before you make money. So these things that we have created, these problems that we have created for ourselves, until we unlearn them, and it can only be unlearned from the top. It can only start from the top. It can't start from the bottom.
We are having more conversations today, and I think that you would be part of it. We have some limited times in our hands. 0814-312-1181 is the number to call. Again, 0814-312-1181. The fact that you were in the market with 1,000 naira yesterday, an ordinary tomato that you could get for 200, and you have enough to have a pot of soup now with 1,000 is just some 4 or 3 pieces. Honorable, you were in the house at some point.
Can I answer that one?
Okay.
That thing that you have said is also a self-destructive attitude that we had from the way Nigeria is cultured. Every state government, maybe I don't know whether anything is waiting for the oil money to do the next things. So the citizens have copied that. Everyone is waiting for the next money from government to be able to do something. Now, take it this way. Nigeria is there was a time, a place like Japan, there was a time Japan came to Africa and took containers and containers of topsoil to go and do farming. They took topsoil from here. Nigeria is one of the richest places on the surface of the earth. Some of the rarest minerals in the world are found in Nigeria. And what is happening? Because people think that it's easier to have it for myself and my family. The collective good is lost. Otherwise, the gold alone that we have
would have been enough.
Could sustain the country.
Look at that. Let's see who we have here. Good morning, cousin.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
My name is Abdullahi.
Abdullahi, talk to us.
Oh, my son will say most of the cow belong to Fulani are not Fulani owner. It belongs to all these big men. So if you even Fulani do anyhow for farm, if you arrest the Fulani, go to police station before you know they will release them. Because most of the cow are belong to all those big men. Notice that in this Sarawak state, under the local government, if you arrest Fulani, say you chop your farm property, before you know, general will call or all these big men will call them, may they release them. You have nothing to do. Then you later release them.
Okay, Abdullah, I think you've made your point, and I think at this point, you need to speak to the morals of Nigerians.
No, let me agree with what Abdullah has said. Evidence does exist.
Very well.
That since the Rinda Paste, 1970 Rinda Paste problem that we had, most Fulani have lost their cattle. The cattle that you have, that they are riding, many of them are working as laborers to big people in town, whether they are military men or they are top civil servants or top businessmen. What he said is a fact, which is why you see the Fulani people, guys who are holding AK-47 don't have the money to buy AK-47. There are people in the town, the owners of these cows, who buy. Many of them are in government. They are in government. They are in all the agencies in government. They are the ones that buy these guns for this Fulani and tell them to go and do whatever they need to do. And I have argued before that these Fulani boys in the bush, they need education like every other person.
Very true.
They want to live good life like they need to go to school. They need to enter into the mainstream economy. But for our selfish elite, it's better to keep them there, to keep their cows, which they now sell during festivities, to government agencies or even agencies that they are part of the management. so that they make the big bucks. And
I'm thinking of us having a reshaped mind today on this edition, Honorable, if we are able to do that, because for me, we have conscience. Why would we advocate for a Nigerian state that everybody should live happily anywhere they go? And then we're having individuals that are sponsoring some of these things. Life, for me, nobody has the ability to give it. It's God that does that. So why can somebody? It's just quite far.
Nigeria does not have punishment for wrong.
But why is that our laws?
Who obeys the laws in the country? I'm sure that if I follow you, you will disobey traffic rules.
No, I will not.
Cousin,
I will not. I put it to you, I will not. Seriously.
As basic as standing in a queue, as basic as respecting people's rights on the road, we don't do in Nigeria. If you go to even a place like Nigeria, let me mention Nigeria again, people obey traffic rules. A law is as good as it can be enforced. A law that cannot be enforced is like it does not exist.
We went back to our national anthem, and some people say the lyrics of the national anthem should be able to bring in the right morals into us. So I'm feeling that maybe we would react some more to conversation, because matching 1 and 2 together, if we get our security right, our economy survives. And for us, we are thinking that if you want to make some submissions, some more with questions or contributions, you can reach us on 0814-312-1181. We have a limited time now. We'll begin to wind up broadcast. 0814-312-1181. The people are afraid to go to the farm. For us, we say security is everybody's business. Yeah. If that has been the conversation, why are we still afraid of handling issues of security so that the Nigerian state survives? People who are farmers should continue to farm. Agriculture is one of the things that we are thinking should be our alternative. Good morning, cousin. I just intend to give you a little time so that I don't end you like that. Talk to us, please. Quickly, 60 seconds.
Okay, it's all right. I've been on before. This is Prisho.
Okay.
And, agriculture is the base.
Very true.
Economy.
Very true.
The only way to kill and fight the war silently is by starving the people, and that's what's going on. They are starving us in this country.
Quite sad.
Taking over the forest, and people are watching.
Quite sad.
They're taking over the forest. They are politicizing. When the security is politicized, the solution becomes difficult.
Now,
you don't, and everybody is at risk.
It's a sad one.
My own junior brother was kidnapped. I went into the forest between Otupa and what do you call this place? Where you go that way from Benue. I took 3.5 million to the forest to pay them. They had me there for hours. I left around 8 p.m. in the night.
You didn't go with any security personnel?
If you go with security personnel, will you come back?
It's sad. Honorable, at this point, I feel that having you on this edition of HallowMace should make sense. Let's have a take home. What should we be taking home from our conversations today about the security and the economy?
Now, let me make one point very clear.
Okay.
Everywhere in the world, all through history, that human societies have developed and advanced, it is through the instrumentality of government, of governance. Indeed, for man to transit from where we had the survival of the fittest, the animal kingdom and so forth, a form of governance had to be evolved that allowed for only certain people to hold arms to use on behalf of all the other people. We must get government right in Nigeria.
Okay.
If we don't get government right in Nigeria, we will not have an end to insecurity. Some of the nonsense that, sorry I use these phrases, you forgive me for them. Some of the things that people talk about, economy cannot develop without government. In the United States, at a point, 53% of all employment in the United States were done by small businesses. And these small businesses were funded by government. Government provided funding for financial institutions, and government stood as security for small business people with ideas to go and pick this money to do their businesses. Some of the big corporations that later evolved and became worldwide started in garages, supported by government. So sometimes you hear people talk about government has no business in business, it's rubbish. Government is the engine of growth anywhere in the world.
Let's talk to you as our last caller today. Your name and where you're calling from, please.
Good morning, I'm Engineer Suleiman. I remember when President Buhari was there, he asked Buhari that he has a land where cow, when they can administer a cow. And when Pedra approved the money for him, he collected the money, and they cannot make a sense where they could put cow separately. Towards that time, an amount of people were farmed by them. That was destroyed everywhere. We were almost 20 hectares farming. They destroy it without taking anything from there. And all of us, we can't even go there and farm again.
Yeah, I know that story. It is not just Yahya Bello. Several state governors, I understand, collected money, some 2 billion, some 6 billion from the federal government to create where cattle will graze. And nothing has happened to them.
Nobody is questioning that.
AFCC has not gone after them. Nobody knows what is happening. I think that inquiry needs to be reopened. Which state governors collected those monies and where did they put the money? Because that's why I said government everywhere in the world, all through history, has been the engine of growth, the engine of growth of the economy. Even China that people are talking about, most of the Chinese big companies are government-backed. Not just government-backed. Government has strong ownership in them, including the companies that are doing mining in Nigeria, including companies that are doing road construction in Nigeria. So for someone to come and say that government has no business, government has business in making business to function. Government has business in ensuring that things take off, because that is the problem that we are. And let's be very careful. People don't think that colonization is possible again, but colonization is possible again. Let me tell you one thing. If they bring some aeroplanes in to Abuja here now, and say they want to take people to go out to China to become laborers or slaves there, people will bribe to enter those aeroplanes.
I should know that. Quite a number of people are leaving the nation. Is it Jackpot? Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I've heard it.
Now, cousin, I know that we are passionate about this state, Nigeria. I know that you and I will always hope that things should get better. At this point, I don't know what to ask Honorable Rima Shawulu, because for him, you've been very, very open-minded with conversations, and I feel that no sentiments going forward. I suppose that we will be glad to say after our edition of HallowMace today, the government would do the needful so that the Nigerian state is protected. Let our farmers be free to farm. Until that is done, I suppose that we might not diversify from the oil.
If the farmers don't go back to farm, already pictures are emerging from the northwest of children looking like the famine-stricken people of Ethiopia of those days. The hunger, I did a motion before that there will be hunger last year and this year before I left the house.
We're like a prophet then.
No, that was, it was plain to see that farmers, where people were producing, farmers were running away. See, those areas around Borno, let's start from Borno. You know, a lot of the onions that we used to consume in Nigeria used to come from Borno.
Yeah.
Boko Haram has driven them out. So where is the onion? The beans, we had a lot of beans coming from Zamfara, Sokoto, and Kebbi. Now the farmers are no longer farming. So where are you going to get the beans?
I'm thinking of more questions that we might ask, and we're looking for the right answers to be given. Hopefully, this edition has had some authorities followed up on our conversation, and we should be sure that some solutions will come at us. I must appreciate Honorable Rima Shawulu for coming through. But I think I should call your full name, Honorable Rimande.
Rimande Shawulu.
I thought I could shock you, but look at that. It's okay, cousin. Thank you for coming through. Until next week, we should say that we hope that Nigeria gets better. All we do on this program is good governance, and that's why we bring legislators, former legislators, serving legislators, to be sure that we get the right legislations and have this nation work. Cousin on Radio remains my name. The producer and executive producer of the program has been Sonny Anderson. Till next week, Thursday, 10 a.m., we should be back with you on another fresh edition of the program. We still have some callers coming through, but we have a limited time. Thank you so much for your time. Once again, we appreciate you for coming.
Those against in there, the eyes have it.
Our journey has been steady from the Advent. With crystal clear vision, we started off as a news online portal. We subsequently evolved into a magazine, and now on your radio. We do not only bear the name Media House. We practice with the best ethos of our professional calling, presenting facts with objectivity. We are committed and resolute. We are HallowMace. We are the standard bearers. It's HallowMace on radio, dedicated to promotion of legislature, democracy, and good governance. It's hot, interactive, educating, engaging, and entertaining. HallowMace on radio, Thursdays, 10 a.m. on Armed Forces Radio, 107.7 FM. HallowMace on radio. Parliament. Watch to the people. Watch to the people.